Let's talk a little bit about staged automobile accidents, because a lot of the fraud in automobile accidents has nothing to do with the crushed automobile. It has to do with, as we've been talking about, injuries and medical claims. How are automobile accidents staged? In what ways can people fake an automobile accident?
Well, there's really two different ways. One is what I would call a pure staged accident, where oftentimes the accident never really happened. They will have two cars that have damage on them. They'll claim that these two cars hit each other. They'll even have, a location where this accident may have happened, and the people in the cars will have a story as to what happened and how it happened. But there was really never an accident.
And I should say nowadays that's probably even easier to do, because a lot of police departments don't come to accidents anymore, and you just go there to the police department and file a report in order to file an insurance claim. So the police weren't there to actually investigate it.
And that helps perpetrate that type of fraud. Then the other type of what I would call staged accident would be which is very dangerous, involves innocent victims, where a person is looking for someone who looks like they have a lot of insurance. Maybe it's an expensive car. Sometimes they'll target elderly people because they're less likely to fully explain what happened in the automobile accident, and maybe very confused about what really happened. And then they'll target that person, and perhaps as they're driving down the road, they'll suddenly slam on their brakes, and this innocent car will then not be able to stop in time and hit them in the rear.
So they'll be in front of you, and they'll deliberately stop short without any warning whatsoever.
And oftentimes there's an excuse for that. It might be that some animal ran out in front of my car and I had to slam on my brakes to stop suddenly. Or sometimes they'll just deny that there was a sudden stop, that they were just coasting to a slow stop, and this person behind them hit them in the rear. And it's usually a carload full of people who will have one story, setting up this accident, versus the innocent person who was behind them, who will be saying, that they stopped suddenly and caused the accident.
And of course you'll have a carload full of people, because there'll be more claims then. If there are more people in the car, then if you have 6 people in the car, then they can all claim back injury, neck injury.
Right. If you're going to perpetrate an auto accident insurance fraud for injury purposes, yes, you want to have a carload full of people. That's where you make your money. It's not one individual. You want to make sure all the seats are filled.
Another common thing that I've read about too is if you're trying to merge into traffic and someone will stop and wave you in and say it's okay to come in, and then they'll deliberately hit you and deny that they ever waved you in.
That's right. That's another very common way to have what we call a caused accident.
So if consumers are aware of some of these schemes, they can really avoid them. You don't travel too close to someone, so even if they brake suddenly, you can stop in time. You don't, necessarily, if someone, is waving you in, and if there's a carload of people in there, maybe you should be more wary and not. I mean, there must be ways that.
Well, I think it's difficult for the average person to avoid. These people are very clever, so to avoid it. But I think the big point would be that when you've observed this yourself, make sure you explain to your insurance company that this is what you think is really happening. You don't, because you know about insurance fraud, you know about these staged accident schemes. You may want to, if your insurance company doesn't notice it right away, and their claim handler may just go out and proceed to handle this claim as a normal claim, you might want to point out to them the fact that you think there's something funny going on yourself.
Polls have shown that 10% of Americans say that if they could get away with insurance fraud, they would do it. Are you aware of polls like that? Yeah,
there have been several polls like that over the years that have questioned people about their attitude towards insurance fraud, and those statistics have been fairly common over the last 20 or 30 years, where people people view insurance as an opportunity to make money. You talked earlier about how insurance is a sharing of the risk type situation. People don't always view it that way. They view it of, I've been paying money and insurance premiums for years now, and now I've had my accident, and now it's my time to try to remove my money that I've been investing into this insurance for so long, and don't recognize that first of all, that's illegal, and you can go to jail for it, and there could be some serious consequences from it. But they also don't think there's anything morally wrong with it either, and that's what most of these polls deal with, are just people's senses of morality of what is really right and wrong.
Do insurance companies make any effort to educate people about that? First of all, that it is wrong, how much it does cost everyone, how much it does hurt society. insurance companies involved in public service announcements like that?
Insurance companies belong to various different types of anti-fraud organizations that do that type of work. For example, I'm co-chair of the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud, and they are very active in providing information to the public about insurance fraud schemes and the cost of insurance fraud. I also personally and through my company work with the National Insurance Crime Bureau, who do the same type of activity. Individual insurance companies don't always do it themselves, and they usually rely on these larger organizations they belong to, so that the message is more generic in nature. It's really a problem for all insurance companies, not a problem necessarily just for individual insurance companies.
Would you say that insurance fraud has worsened in the last few years? Now what you've mentioned so far is really talking about, say, individual doctors, individual unscrupulous lawyers, but now there are really entire gangs, especially in large cities, that participate in insurance fraud and literally, get cars full of people, many cars full of people every single day and send them out. It's like their job, send them out to have these phony accidents. So are you seeing actually the problem worsening as opposed to lessening?
Very definitely. The insurance fraud used to be an individual sport where an individual would take advantage of an accident or a situation, or maybe would cause it. But it's getting more and more organized type activity. Both at the individual level, where there may be individuals who are staging accidents and getting people involved in that, but also at the lawyer level, and much more frequently now at the medical level, where sometimes the activity is being organized and perpetrated by medical providers.
And then that's really interesting. Tell me, are medical boards, state medical boards, getting involved in helping you to solve this problem? I mean, if it's doctors who are becoming more involved in this, are doctors and professional organizations themselves trying to police their fellow doctors to not do this?
In some states, yes, but in many states, I think, unfortunately, the answer is no, because medical boards, for the most part, focus in on the practice of medicine, not the business of medicine. And the fraud occurs in the business of medicine and the business of the practice, but not the practice for the most part. So the medical boards are focused, as they should be, on doctors who are incompetent, doctors who could injure patients by their lack of training or their lack of expertise, or involved in perhaps sexual molestation of their patients, things of that sort. But they very seldom get involved in issues related to how a doctor is running his business, and the insurance fraud is oftentimes in the way they run their business, not in the way they practice their medicine.
I would think, though, that doctors providing unnecessary treatment, say, would be part of this, and that would be some place where a state medical board would overlap, because giving unnecessary treatment would also be something I would think they're concerned about, as well as insurance companies being concerned about that.
Yes, that's true, but oftentimes the unnecessary treatment is benign treatment. It's not treatment that's going to harm the patient. Oftentimes the patient isn't injured at all anyway, so ordering extra MRI tests or continuing to have someone have physical therapy when it's unnecessary is not really going to hurt the patient. And medical licensing boards are focused on patient harm more than they are on doctors who do more than they should, or provide treatment, especially when it's benign type treatment.